There is an old and haunting tale about a cruel experiment conducted on mice. These creatures were placed in complete isolation with no contact from other animals, and as a result, they developed severe neurotic behaviors. Over time, their mental health deteriorated, leading to depression and, ultimately, premature death. This story is often quoted as conclusive evidence that social isolation is incredibly harmful to living beings, especially those who, like humans, are inherently social. However, what is frequently left unsaid is that the same research also revealed something striking. Mice that were kept in constant company, surrounded by other mice without ever having a moment of solitude, exhibited the same tragic symptoms. Their mental health declined in a very similar way. Schopenhauer, the famous German philosopher, grasped this paradox more than 2 centuries ago when he observed that solitude is the fate of all exceptional minds. In this observation, Schopenhauer captured something modern society has failed to recognize. The real distinction is not between isolation and company, but between forced solitude, which crushes the spirit, and chosen solitude, which has the potential to liberate and empower. The fear of solitude in modern society. Our culture is obsessed with the idea of constant social interaction. We are taught to view solitude as an anomaly, even a sign of some mental or emotional defect. But what if our aversion to solitude isn't a sign of mental health, but rather a deep and troubling inability to confront the inner truths that only arise when we are alone? Think for a moment about the number of people you know who go to great lengths to avoid being alone, often choosing the company of others, even when it's unhealthy or toxic, rather than facing the silence of their own thoughts. Take a walk down the streets of any city on a Friday or Saturday night, and you'll witness this phenomenon. People pack into bars, clubs, and crowded spaces, clearly uncomfortable, yet they endure the discomfort simply to avoid the stillness of solitude. The preference for external noise over inner peace reflects something profound and unsettling about our relationship with being alone. As Schopenhauer put it, most men are so subjectively poor that they care more about the quality of their company than the quality of their thoughts. Avoiding self-confrontation, a fearful escape, this insight reveals something deeply uncomfortable. More often than not, people do not seek companionship because of the joy of connection or meaningful relationship, but because they are attempting to escape from themselves. They fear the silence, the uncomfortable moments when they are left to confront their own thoughts, their own questions about who they truly are, and whether their lives truly reflect their values. In this way, Schopenhauer's critique of society shines a light on a disturbing truth. Many people are terrified to be alone, not because they miss others, but because they miss the noise that allows them to avoid looking inward. This is a powerful insight, and it aligns with what modern psychology has confirmed. The inability to tolerate being alone often masks a fear of confronting deep existential questions. Who am I when I am not trying to impress others? What do I truly want in life beyond external validation? Am I truly living in alignment with my deepest values? For many, the answers to these questions can be destabilizing, even frightening, because they often contradict the image we present to the world. Solitude as a tool for growth and reflection. Schopenhauer understood this well. He argued that nearly all human suffering stems from our inability to be alone with ourselves. Our fear of isolation is often a reflection of an inability to face our own thoughts, our own truths. This is the paradox of solitude. We avoid it because we fear what we might find, yet it is in solitude that we are most likely to find clarity, insight, and genuine understanding. Solitude is the native soil of genius, Schopenhauer once wrote, and the permanent state of everyone whose intellect stands out from mediocrity. This powerful statement underscores the importance of solitude for personal growth, creativity, and self-realization. True creativity and original thought often emerge not in the midst of bustling social interaction, but in the quiet stillness of one's own company. The false narrative of constant social interaction. Yet despite this, modern society pushes the narrative that being alone is unhealthy and constant social interaction is the key to fulfillment. This is a false narrative that blinds us to the true potential that solitude offers. It is during these solitary moments that we can explore the depths of our mind, understand our true desires, and engage in profound self-reflection. The discomfort many people feel when they are alone, the unease that arises when external distractions fall away, is the very moment when growth begins. It is in this uncomfortable silence that we begin to confront the truth of who we are. Schopenhauer's observations are still incredibly relevant today. As a society, we are so addicted to external stimuli and social approval that we have forgotten how to be comfortable in our own skin, alone with our own thoughts. The benefits of chosen solitude. Throughout history, some of the world's most profound minds have found clarity, purpose, and groundbreaking inspiration not in crowds or conversation, but in the quiet company of themselves. Solitude, far from being a punishment or a burden, was the sacred space where their deepest thoughts were allowed to bloom. In fact, the very nature of chosen solitude holds within it a kind of quiet power, one that modern society has largely forgotten in its rush toward endless connection and stimulation. Henry David Thoreau is one of the most iconic advocates of solitude. In 1845, he withdrew from society and took up residence by Walden Pond in Massachusetts, where he lived simply and intentionally for 2 years. This was not an escape from life, but rather a deep immersion into it. Thoreau used his solitude to reflect on nature, society, and the human spirit. The result was Walden, a timeless masterpiece that has inspired millions to examine their own lives more honestly. Thoreau's solitude gave him the space not just to think, but to hear, to listen to the voice within, which is often drowned out by the noise of everyday life. Nikola Tesla, the brilliant inventor responsible for many of the technologies that power the modern world, also thrived in solitude. He often spoke of his need to be alone, calling it the secret of invention. In solitude, Tesla visualized complex machines entirely in his mind before ever committing them to paper. This ability to create without distraction or interruption speaks to the immense power of mental clarity that solitude can offer. His innovations in electricity, radio, and wireless communication were born not from social brainstorming sessions, but from long hours of focused introspection. Then there is Sir Isaac Newton. During the Great Plague of 1665, when Cambridge University was forced to shut down, Newton returned to his family estate and entered what he later described as his annus mirabilis, his year of wonders. Isolated from academic society and freed from distractions, Newton delved deeply into problems that had previously eluded him. It was during this period of solitude that he developed the foundations of calculus, formulated the laws of motion and gravity, and advanced his work in optics. Had he not been removed from the bustle of university life, the trajectory of science might have looked entirely different. But the benefits of solitude are not reserved only for great historical figures. Every person, regardless of talent or ambition, has the potential to access their deepest thoughts and creative impulses when given the space to simply be. In solitude, we are free to observe without being observed, to think without performing, and to dream without fear of judgment. It is in this space that we can reflect, recharge, and rediscover the parts of ourselves that are often lost in the noise of social interaction. Modern neuroscience even supports what thinkers like Thoreau and Tesla knew instinctively. Studies have shown that solitude activates the brain's default mode network, a system involved in self-reflection, memory consolidation, and moral reasoning. In other words, Solitude is not a vacuum, but a crucible where thoughts are shaped, identities are formed, and ideas are born. Chosen solitude, then, becomes a sacred act, one of self-care, self-realization, and self-respect. It allows us to slow down, process our experiences, and realign with our values. While the world encourages us to always be on, always connected, solitude invites us to unplug, not in rebellion, but in search of deeper truths. In that stillness, we become reacquainted with who we are, rather than who we are trying to be for others. Ultimately, the question is not whether solitude is beneficial, but whether we are brave enough to claim it. To choose solitude is to declare that your inner world matters. It's to recognize that silence isn't empty. It's full of answers. It's to accept that clarity, creativity, and contentment don't always come from others. They often come from within. Even Sir Isaac Newton, during the plague years when the University of Cambridge was closed, found time for deep solitude and personal reflection, leading to some of his most important discoveries. These examples demonstrate that transformative ideas often emerge not from constant socializing, but from the stillness and focus that come with periods of solitude. Schopenhauer's wisdom, solitude as a path to true strength. Arthur Schopenhauer, the 19th century German philosopher known for his penetrating insights into human nature, saw solitude not as a state to be avoided, but as a vital key to personal power and peace. In a world where most people seek distraction to escape their thoughts, Schopenhauer turned inward and discovered a profound truth. Our fear of being alone is often nothing more than a fear of facing ourselves. He believed that the root of much human suffering lies in this inability to sit in stillness, to hear our own inner voice, and to be at ease in our own presence. To Schopenhauer, solitude was not loneliness. It was not a state of deprivation or lack, but a powerful opportunity for introspection and personal evolution. He observed that most individuals surround themselves with noise, crowds, and constant interaction, not because they genuinely desire it, but because they cannot bear the silence that reveals their inner emptiness. A man can be himself only so long as he is alone, he wrote, emphasizing that solitude strips away the need for social masks and allows the soul to stand naked, honest, and real. This is the paradox Schopenhauer illuminated. We avoid solitude because we fear the truths that may surface in silence, our regrets, our failures, our unresolved thoughts. And yet it is only in solitude that we begin to process those very things, to make peace with them, and to forge a stronger self. Far from being a weakness, the ability to be alone is a rare and powerful strength. It reflects inner richness, the kind that cannot be bought, borrowed, or begged for. It must be cultivated slowly through self-awareness and courage. Schopenhauer believed that a person who possesses depth and wisdom would naturally be drawn towards solitude. Such a person does not require constant entertainment or validation because their mind is fertile and full of substance. The more a man has in himself, the less he needs from the outside world, he wrote. This simple but profound idea teaches us that true fulfillment does not come from chasing experiences or approval, but from developing a robust and self-sufficient inner life. In solitude, the noise of the world fades, and what remains is what truly matters: our thoughts, our values, our direction. Creative breakthroughs are born here, emotional wounds begin to heal here, spiritual growth unfolds here. Schopenhauer saw solitude not just as a tool for philosophers and scholars, but as a necessity for anyone seeking to live an examined, intentional, and free life. This perspective stands in stark contrast to today's culture of hyperconnectivity. We are encouraged to be constantly available, endlessly occupied, and perpetually stimulated. But Schopenhauer's wisdom invites us to reclaim our time, our thoughts, and our sovereignty. He reminds us that solitude is not exile, it is liberation. It is not isolation, It is the return to oneself. To practice solitude is to walk the path of self-mastery. It is to say, I am enough. It is to resist the frantic call for external approval and instead root oneself in quiet internal assurance. That is where strength is born, not in applause or attention, but in presence, reflection, and self-possession. In the end, Schopenhauer teaches us that solitude is not a punishment, but a privilege. It is a discipline of the strong, not the weak. And those who dare to embrace it will find within themselves a depth, a resilience, and a peace that no crowd can provide. Conclusion: embracing solitude for personal transformation. To truly harness the power of solitude, we must begin by acknowledging an uncomfortable truth. Being alone can feel unsettling, especially in a world that constantly pushes us to stay connected, busy, and outwardly focused. Yet it is precisely in this discomfort that the seeds of transformation are planted. Rather than flee from it, we must learn to lean into the silence, to sit with ourselves without distraction, and to gradually build a relationship with our own inner world. Start small. A few moments each day without the hum of digital noise, without the pull of notifications, without the need to perform or please. These small windows of intentional solitude, free from social media, entertainment, and the opinions of others, begin to open up space in the mind. At first, the quiet may feel foreign, even intimidating, but stay with it. Over time, the discomfort gives way to stillness, and that stillness reveals something powerful: peace, clarity, and inner knowing. In these moments, choose activities that nourish the inner life. Journal your thoughts without judgment. Read deeply, not just to consume, but to contemplate, or simply sit, breathe, and observe your thoughts like passing clouds. These practices, though simple, are revolutionary in a distracted world. They are the very ground upon which true self-awareness and personal growth take root. Schopenhauer's philosophy invites us to reclaim solitude as sacred. He reminds us that silence is not empty, and stillness is not stagnation. On the contrary, solitude is where we meet our truest selves, beneath the noise, beneath the masks. It is a tool for deep transformation, a sanctuary for reflection, and a mirror through which we can see who we really are. When we embrace solitude, we begin to loosen our dependence on external validation. We no longer need the constant affirmation of the world to feel worthy. Instead, we become anchored in our own values, our own thoughts, our own sense of direction. We cultivate an inner richness that cannot be taken away, resilient, self-sufficient, and deeply alive. Solitude is not about withdrawing from life, but about engaging with it more intentionally. It is a return to self, a commitment to live from the inside out rather than the outside in. It is within this quiet space that we unearth our most authentic desires, confront our hidden fears, and reconnect with our purpose. So, choose solitude, not as an escape, but as an act of courage. In doing so, you will discover that you are never truly alone. Within the silence lives your strength. Within the stillness waits your transformation.